that whoever is watching outside.
Okay.
Okay, Tim, go ahead.
You ready?
Yes. I've been ready.
Oh, good. Well, I'm here finally. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good day, whatever it is, wherever in the world you are. We got some really cool guests today, and we're going to be talking about such esoteric and sometimes overwhelming subjects. Going to learn a lot if you listen. And our host, as always, and our MC is Denny Mew. Take it away, buddy.
Thank you, Tim. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today, once again, we have Keith Bromley from IXIA. And good morning, Keith. How are you?
I'm great. How you guys doing?
Good, good. So we haven't run out of things to say yet.
Oh, I'd never run out of things to say. I mean, people may not want to listen, but I never run out of things I have to say.
So we have a special guest. We have Jason Russ from Dynatrace. So why don't you introduce our guest owner and a little bit about Russ as well as the company. Go ahead, Keith.
Oh, so Jason Suss works for Dynatrace, and Dynatrace is one of IXIA's partners. They provide APM solutions, or I should say application performance monitoring solutions. They do a great job. Our products work with theirs in physical, virtual, cloud environments. Our packet broker feeds their product, which then takes the data and looks at user behavior analytics, business transaction monitoring, full state monitoring, root cause, even does some with topology and stuff. So it's a great product. Jason, you want to say more on that?
Yeah, sure. So I've been with Dynatrace for a number of years now, about 11 years in this specific market with our wire data-based solution, which I'm sure we'll get into more. And it's been a great experience so far working with IXIA. So happy to be here to chat about it.
Yeah, good. And one thing I'd like to mention is Keith now works actually for Keysight Technologies, right, Keith?
Yeah. Keysight Technologies acquired IXIA about 2 weeks ago, mid-April. Yeah, officially. So I am a Keysighter.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ben.
So Jason, my former experience is very similar to that of Keith in that we're more from the infrastructure side, getting data off the network. So both Keith and I know that we don't exist on our own. I mean, there's no reason people buy our product unless they buy your product. So can you explain to us more about what your product does and what it means to the end user? Because that's really what it's all about.
Sure. So and that's a great segue, because end user experience is really the focus of Dynatrace, and understanding, is the level of service that's being delivered to the end user is good, and if it's not, why, right? Because you want to be able to find out and address it quickly, and ideally as proactively as possible. So when you kind of think about the different ways to monitor, you can install agents on servers, you can run synthetic transactions from either remote or local locations to exercise the application and understand if it's performing well, if it's available, or you can look at the packets, right? And depending on the type of applications and the type of infrastructure and access to data, there's usually reasons to do one or more of those. And so the product that I deal with is the wire data-based solution. And so it's looking at the packets, to and from every client server relationship within the data center, and understanding, where's it coming from, where is it going to, is it good, is it bad, what type of transaction, what type of application, and then giving all the details about that to understand the level of service being delivered to the end user. And if there are any areas where there's slowdowns or deviations from normal performance and behavior, we can quickly pinpoint those and bring them to the attention of the operations team to address it and dive in further.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, we don't get paid for bringing complexity to the customer, right?
Right.
We get paid for bringing simplicity. So the customer doesn't want to hear all about how you get the data. So let's switch it a little now and to sort of the infrastructure side. So what do you need to do? What does it take for you to do your job from looking at the network and the packets?
Yeah, so if we go back a few years to kind of how it used to be, it's fundamentally a network probe. So there is a box that we put in the data center, and we're a software company, so we don't care what kind of box that is. We give our customers the specs for CPU and memory and disk and so on, and they're free to put that on any type of hardware of their choosing. There's a whole list of NICs that we work with, that we recommend, and they're free to configure that however they want. So that's kind of our probe component. From there, we just have to get the traffic sent to us. And historically, that was a lot easier, right? There was one core switch, they'd create a span, they'd send all that traffic to our probe, and ta-da, we see everything, right? It was a natural aggregation point of all the traffic. However, as I'm sure you well know, in the last several years, it's gotten more and more complicated with virtualization and software-defined networking and people moving things out to the cloud and having kind of a hybrid approach. It's not just a single connection from the core switch anymore. It's trying to get that traffic from multiple points, multiple locations, multiple data centers, and bring that all to a central point, our network probe or multiple network probes, to be able to make sense of that. And so as that's gotten more complicated, getting access to that traffic has gotten more challenging. And so that's where, we look to a partner like IXIA to help us gain access to that traffic so that it can be sent to us, and it can be sent to us properly, clean traffic that's the traffic that we need to see and want to see, and not anything that we don't want sent to us.
Mm-hmm. Tim, you have anything to add?
No, I just think that a lot of people today, even unfortunately, they struggle to do even standard baselining, and they forget that there's technology out there that can, I'll say, do it live, can actually watch the networks for you, the databases, the applications, and this is where APM comes in to be an amazing technology. I was looking at your website a little while ago, and I don't see any technology that is out there that you guys don't support. From application to database, from A to Z, and a couple of ones I never heard of. Actually, many I didn't hear of before.
Yeah, it changes every week. We have that list of logos, and I swear every week there's 20 new ones that I don't recognize. There's some that I do, and then I finally learned those a couple weeks later, and half of them are gone, and there's new ones. I mean, you think a couple of years ago everything was big data and MongoDB and NoSQL and all that, and now this year it's Cloud Foundry and Pivotal and Docker and just more and more every day.
Yeah, and I think that's the big, as you were saying earlier, complexity has changed a wee bit, right? I mean, remember the old days of one router, a couple of switches, and that was easy. I could even give you a network diagram. And nowadays, if you ask a network manager or security guy or CSO or whatever for a network map, you usually have to call 911 to resuscitate them. And the problem is that ultimately networks were not built to have fun with. They were meant to handle applications that run your company, that make you money. And a lot of times people are subjected to the high-level board mentality that, you can get open source technology. Don't worry about it. That's all you got to learn how to do. And it doesn't work that way, does it?
No, it's definitely gotten more complicated, and especially now, well, not now, but in the recent year or two, with just the up and coming and existing cloud, right? Everything is cloud. I mean, we hear that in every meeting. It's, what's your cloud strategy, or what's your existing cloud footprint, and are you moving to the cloud, and is it going to be a hybrid approach? Is it going to be lift and shift? Are you going to go with AWS? Are you going to go with Azure? Is it going to be private? Is it going to be public? And that's a whole different ballgame, especially when it comes to accessing traffic, because there's, like I said before, there's a lot of different ways to monitor performance of applications, and you're limited in some cases where maybe you can't put an agent on a server. Maybe that server is something that spins up for 30 seconds and then disappears because it's a dynamic environment. So how do you instrument that, right? It has to be native, and it has to be in there already. So it's a whole different world in how to address those types of environments. And on the traffic side of it, where do you put the probe? How do you get access to that traffic? How do you get that traffic sent to you from these dynamic environments? And that's what we're seeing more and more this year and looking forward with our customers.
So Keith, can you kind of pick up on that thought, and how from your perspective, from the infrastructure perspective, how do you actually provide data to the next layer, someone like Dynatrace, if it is in fact a cloud strategy?
Well, yeah. So for us, the song remains the same on like you said, the physical environment. APM tools, we can provide the package just like we normally do. For virtual environments, we can use something called a virtual tap. So we can go into the virtual data center, pull the data off there, and then send it over to Dynatrace or some other tool. And then for the cloud environment, we actually have a solution we called Cloud Lens that can go in there, that has an agent that can capture data and then send it over to a packet broker that will then forward the data onto the APM solution. So for us, technology changes, but essentially it's the same thing. You've got a way to collect the data, and then it goes into our packet broker, and then we're going to send it on to the APM tool, the Dynatrace tool, and they can keep going with what they're doing.
Well, the technology might be very similar, but the ownership is different now, right? Because you have so many players now, right? Because you got the people who owns the cloud, you got people who uses the cloud, and then you got people that manage the cloud, right? How does that all work?
Well, for us, I'm not going to talk too much about the Cloud Lens solution, but in general, it's the same thing. We've got an agent we're going to stick out there. So if a customer has 6 different cloud networks, yeah, if you're trying to do that all by yourself, that's a problem. But we can put agents out there on different cloud networks. We can pull the data back to the packet broker, and then we can forward it on. That's what the sort of role we fulfill. Again, that aggregation point. That makes it simple and easy for the customer. And it makes it a little easier
for us too. I mean, that's one of the reasons that we really started this whole relationship is, like I said, historically it was easy. You created a span, single point from a core switch and sent us the traffic. Now with all the virtualization and the software defined networks and the way everything's being architected, you can't do that anymore. And so our role of just getting the traffic sent to us for analysis really relies on the network team knowing where that traffic is and how to get access to that traffic and how to get it to us. And so we've been able to utilize our relationship with IXIA to, I'm not going to say outsource, but kind of offload some of that work to them, because that's what they do and they're very good at it. And so when we enter an engagement with a client, we tell them we're going to show you all this great information about your applications and we just need the traffic. They say, well, how do we get the traffic? And we say, well, it's easy. We call IXIA and they'll come in and they'll look at your network and they'll evaluate how everything is set up, and they'll let you know what points need taps and if you need an aggregator and how to get that traffic all together. And then their aggregator will do the deduplication, it'll do the filtering and send us that clean stream of traffic so that we can begin our monitoring. So that used to be quite a bit of work for us. And now with this partnership, we can do that much faster and more efficiently to keep our sales cycle and our engagements moving much faster. And we don't have to have that expertise and skill set on our side, right? With our engineers, we can just look to IXIA to go in and find out where that traffic is and get it to us and do the install of taps if necessary, or virtual taps, or the aggregator. And then that just feeds our network probe. And it's benefit-wise, and not to belabor the point and go on, but it's a more efficient way to do the monitoring because you're only getting the traffic that you need. You're getting that traffic on one clean interface instead of having to run connections from multiple switches to our probe. It all goes to the IXIA port aggregator, and then they can do filtering, they can do deduplication, because you don't want your monitoring tool to be doing all that kind of behind the scenes network work, right? I mean, if you're paying for a probe to analyze traffic, have it analyze traffic. Don't have it do deduplication, don't have it do filtering, because there's only a finite amount of compute that physical probe is going to have. So why would you waste it on deduplication when it should be doing what it's good at, which is the analysis of the traffic? I always give the kind of silly example of, you could probably cool your house down in the summer with the refrigerator, right? If you leave the doors open and maybe put a fan in front of it, but that's not what it's made to do, right? You put an air conditioner in. So you could probably filter and deduplicate all the traffic with your network probe, but why not just have a product that's designed to filter and deduplicate and have it be much more efficient?
Yeah, and that's part of that core reason for the visibility architecture. Even though the technology can change on you, if you set up that visibility architecture where you're looking at your access layer, you're looking at the aggregation of that data with the packet broker, and then fanning it out to the tools. If you go in with that methodology with whatever you design, that's That's going to make your life simple and easy, and keep it that way. Because guess what? The business things still stay the same, right? You want to have simplicity. You're still going to have slowness of applications. You're still going to have some quality of experience and quality of service problems. So how do you go and solve them? Well, you have your visibility architecture that will get you the data you need, send it to the packet broker, which will then fan that out to the right tool at the right time and give you what you need without adding more complexity to your life as an IT engineer or IT manager, because you got enough complexity and you got enough issues, you got enough problems in life.
Yeah. Well, in addition to what Jason said, which is, everyone should have their specialization and do what they best at. That there, in addition to that, there's also the economy of scale, right? Because you're not just doing it for one tool, right? The customers
Yes.
have multiple tools that they have to put in place, and they all more or less require the same functionality from the visibility layer. And
Right.
so so you do what you're good at. That's one thing, but now you're doing it for multiple tools, multiple partners, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then we can give them what they want, because maybe they want packet data, maybe they want net flow data, maybe they want some geolocation or stuff. So we can throw that in with our application intelligence as well. So whatever they need, we can take the piece or pieces, put them together, and deliver it to them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, go ahead, Jim.
The traditional need for monitoring, analysis, access, visibility, and that was pretty simple. But now we've moved into the SDN world, the virtuality world, the hypothetical world, the cloud, which is not definable. And so that is demonstrative in the fact we've got to move forward in our ability to monitor. And of course, in the Church of Love My Tool, we preach taps, but any kind of visibility is better than no visibility. And a lot of people get confused. I can't tell you how many times people have said, well, why do I need to have visibility? I've got SDN. And I'm like, well, SDN disconnects the data plane from the management plane, so you can't see the data. Oh, no, that's built into SDN. And I'm like, no, it's not. So people, and especially when you're talking about the cloud, oh, my God, that's a mystery. There's actually a law pending in the Senate that if you can't define the cloud, okay, you can't put parents around it, you can't use it in a compliance environment. So like for, medical data and things like that, they're going to be putting a lot of pressure on, because right now we're finding out that a lot of the cloud, you have an entry point, but then you never know who's got access to it. Yeah. And if it's been merged in with other databases or merged in with other containment. So it's people have got to wake up and they've got to start moving ahead. And by the way, nobody to this day, I've heard people tell me, oh, we can monitor 100 gigabits, we can monitor 10 gigabits or capture it. But no human being can actually monitor that, because they would faint after the first 4 million packets, which is about 2 seconds. So you've got to start breaking your data up and putting it out to tools that can monitor that type of data, be it security, application monitoring, whatever. And so this is an imperative, and people keep putting it off. And not just small companies, but big companies.
Yeah, well, Tim, it kind of reminds me 20 years ago, maybe even more, when we start to outsource manufacturing. When we start to outsource manufacturing to China or whatever, and we think that not only do we outsource the physical labor, but we outsource all the other issues that has to do with environments and all that, right? We used to think like that. And it kind of came back to bite us, because now, if they find out that Apple is using a contractor in China that abuse labor or dump toxic chemical in the river, well, that's you can't escape that. So I think, if I understand it correctly, I think what you're saying is that when it comes to the court of law, when it comes to chain of evidence, you can't outsource that, right? Yeah.
And that's becoming an issue with law enforcement, because law enforcement now worries those little cameras around. And by the way, some companies now are requiring their employees that are in high security environments to wear a camera, and that data that 8 hours of video gets uploaded to the cloud. Well, you take that to court, and there's going to be a lot of contention. Well, how do you know that data wasn't
Mm-hmm.
changed? Because that data is not, you know, MD5 MAC'd and sent out. It's just sent out, and there's no traceability.
Yeah.
So it's going to get pretty rough.
Yeah. Well, the two things that I learned about, doing these shows week after week is that one, you never overstay your welcome. So never do a long show when you can get everything out within 30 minutes. Second is that never get ahead your audience. So I want to come back to the basic, which is what we want to talk about today, understanding NPM and APM. I wonder, Jason, if I could invite you once again to kind of give our audience an overview of APM. Why do they need that? I mean, assuming that we got everything in place now, and we got the broker, we got the packet broker, we got the visibility layer. That is all done. It's ready for you. But why would I care?
Sure. So I always give the example, and I'm kind of a car guy, so there's a couple analogies I like to make. And one is, so if you go to start your car in the morning and it doesn't start, what's the problem? Right? It could be anything, right? It could be a dead battery, it could be out of fuel, it could be the starter, it could be no spark in the spark plugs, it could be, a ton of different things, especially with the complexity that's been growing in cars. We have a fun metric that I think is it 2010, the average car had about 1 million lines of code. And now in 2017, there's 100 million lines of code, and you can fact check me on those numbers, it'll probably be off, but the idea here is that it's exponential growth in the complexity of just cars alone. So there's so many things that could go wrong. Now, if you put your key in the ignition and you turned it and it said spark plug 3 failure, what's the difference there, right? In the first scenario, you pick up the car, you bring it to the mechanic and say, fix it. What do you expect to pay and how long do you expect it to take? Versus the second scenario where you pick up the car, bring it to the mechanic and say, spark plug 3 has failed, right? It's where that issue is, right? We call it a fault domain, right? And if someone who understands cars and how cars work, and you say, spark plug 3 isn't working, it's a quick fix. Pull out the spark plug, put a new one in, and you're up and running. Versus you have a non-functioning car and someone walks in and says, it's broken, fix it, right? Well, what do? Well, you start in the front and then in the middle and then in the back, just like, anytime there's an issue with applications, someone calls up the help desk and says, network's slow, right? And we know, right? We here know that if you have blinking lights on both ends and you're not over about 80% of your bandwidth consumption, it's probably not a network issue, but it's just the perception that, that's what's wrong. So when you look at applications, it's the same thing. They've gotten more and more complex. And so when something slows down or when something's unavailable, where do you start, right? I mean, it could be your connectivity, it could be the device, it could be the network, it could be the ISP, it could be the firewall, the load balancer, web server, middle tier services, app server, some call out to a third party. There's so many different components that make that up. So with an APM solutions, such as Dynatrace and its DC RUM solution, we're looking at everything. We're seeing the connection come in from the end user. We know the health of that connection because we see the request come in, the response go back, the acknowledgement come back, right? That kind of classic TCP, back and forth. And then we see everything within the data center. So are we seeing calls, to the web server? Are we seeing the web server talk to the app server, and then the app server's querying the database, right? In kind of a standard 3-tier environment. And we see all those things, and we know what's normal. So to go with another car analogy here, because that's what I like. If I told you that, I drove to this meeting today and I got 20 miles per gallon, is that good or bad? Well, who knows, right? Am I driving uphill in a Ferrari 200 miles an hour towing a trailer? 20 miles per gallon would be pretty spectacular. It's unlikely, but pretty spectacular. If I was in the right lane of the highway going 45 miles downhill in a Toyota Prius and I got 20 miles per gallon, it'd be pretty terrible. So unless you have that basis of comparison and understanding what's normal, there's no way to truly understand if performance is good or bad. If I tell you that this database query took half a second, half a second, that's really fast. Not when it happens 6 million times a minute. If it goes from half a second to 0.6 seconds, that's enough to bring down an entire application. In fact, that happened to a client of ours. Typical database queries took 3 milliseconds. One day it started taking 5 milliseconds. And sure enough, we saw on the chart, the spike in response time on the front end went from 2-second response time to 23 to 30 to 45-second response time for a major banking front-end website. And it became virtually unusable, for the hundreds of thousands of users. And it was a 2 millisecond difference. So we knew that 3 was normal, and we knew that 5 was, a 3 to 5 millisecond difference isn't much, but that was enough to throw things into a queue and then slow it down and hold everything up. So it's understanding that everything was normal except for that database query, or everything was normal except for that middle tier XML operation, or everything was normal except that we saw 800 users access this instead of 400 users, right, on a given day, and so our volume was double. And so with a product like this, you have that full visibility at every tier of the application to understand, is this normal, or is it more than usual, or is it less than usual, right? Because if we normally see 500 users accessing this and now there's only 100, well, I better check their connectivity, right? Because they may not even be able to get in, and everything looks good response time wise, but there's so many fewer users that there's probably something wrong here. And that's the type of visibility you get with products like this to tell you, is everything normal? And if it's not, what's different or what's off?
Yeah, and then just to jump in on that, so Jason, right there, at the end, he's showing you the solution. The initial start to me for like an IT admin is, have you ever gotten a complaint that the network's running slow? Probably, yeah. Okay, what are you going to do next? That's where you can turn to the APM tool, and that's where you see the 2 millisecond delays and stuff like that.
Yeah, Keith, it's also the definition of what's good and bad or what's slow and fast. You know, the old joke is Mary didn't get much sleep, partied all weekend, came in Monday morning. The network was fast enough for her, no matter what. But Tuesday, she got 18 hours of sleep, 6 cups of coffee, 5 donuts. The network's not going to be fast enough in her perception. Yeah. So, but if you have a good tool, good visibility, accurate visibility, then you can actually do this and say, hey, this is wrong. Like you said, 5 milliseconds may not be bad, but if you got 20,000 users, yeah, you multiply that by 20,000 and now you're, you know, it gets pretty hairy. But if you don't have tools like Access, like the NTO, which is one of my favorite products, and I preach TAPS, as Denny knows, and or some access, good visibility, repeatable access, and then tools, man, I'll tell you what, and then you can start looking at applications, database monitoring and that. So this is an imperative. This is no longer, oh, that'd be cool to have. This is an imperative.
Yeah. And it's prioritization too. You know, a lot of times we see people where, you know, they have some arbitrary threshold where a transaction can't take more than 8 seconds. Okay. And then they see one that takes 12 seconds, and everybody gets all worked up, and they bring in the developers and this team and that team. And then we pull up a report and say, you know, that happens twice a week. You know, that transaction happens twice a week. And how much time and effort and money are you spending to make that 12-second transaction, you know, take under 8 seconds when you have this 7-second transaction over here that happens 7,000 times a day? Why don't you make that take 4 seconds, you know, which might be the easier fix, and the amount of true end user wait time that you're saving is, you know, far greater than trying to make that one outlier transaction that takes 12 seconds, you know, down under that arbitrary 8-second threshold. So to be able to see all that side by side with, you know, what transactions are happening, how often are they happening, and how long are they taking, and compare them side by side, you make more intelligent decisions on where to spend your development efforts and your time, and, you know, ultimately your funding.
Yep. And your survival.
Yeah, exactly.
And your professional resume. Oh, I got fired because the network kept crashing and I couldn't figure out how to fix it. And by the way, that's becoming another issue. We're actually writing an article, a couple of us together, about what is your job? The title, what is your job? If you don't know what your job is and how you can be successful, well, then when you get fired for being stupid or incompetent or whatever, then you should be happy. But that's going to hurt your professional resume. I would love to have you back, Jason, sometime with Keith, and let's turn this around and talk about what we could see. You know, what actually show us some nice graphs.
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to.
Pretty pictures. We like that, don't we, Danny?
Yes, we do.
Everybody likes pictures.
So Keith,
dashboards. It can be a picture, but you have to call it a dashboard. Man, that's what everybody wants.
No,
like,
well, no flip chart like Ross Perot used to show. Come on.
No. Actually, we don't. I mean, Ross Perot is great, but I actually like his running mate. Why am I here? You remember that one? So Keith, we got about 5 minutes. Maybe how about you kind of look at our key points that we're going to talk about, and pick up 1 or 2 that you think that we should emphasize.
Mine's going to be the standard. Oh, sorry, was that to me?
Yeah. Yes, Keith. Yeah.
Yeah, so to me, it's a standard thing. Visibility architecture. It doesn't matter if you're doing a cloud or physical environment, if you do an APM or NPM or whatever solution, you need your visibility architecture to get the right access to the packet broker so that can get the right data, the right tool at the right time. APM solutions we're talking about today that we're doing this deep dive on, very important. They help with with application slowness for users, quality of service, quality of experience. You know, a lot of organizations are trying to focus on that quality of experience metric. I know a lot of the mobile wireless service providers are. There's even enterprises that are focusing on that. So you need to get these tools. You need the tools to have the right data so they can come to the right conclusion and do it as fast as possible, not take hours, days, minutes. And that's what we try to talk about here today.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Keith. Hey, Jason, let's switch a little bit. Let's kind of focus on your partners, companies like IXIA or the others who are what are some of the exciting technology on the infrastructure side that you're seeing?
Oh man, as far as
helping you to do your job.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you what a change it's been to have a partner like IXIA, where they've given us hardware to use for when we do a proof of concept, for example. We engage with the customer and they tell us, yep, we're interested in evaluating your product because we want to see these 10 things, and then we used to have to try to figure out where everything is and how to do it, and now IXIA has sent us a number of their NTOs, and we just pack that in our kit. We ship hardware when we do a proof of concept, and everything feeds into the IXIA. The IXIA has one connection to our kit, and we're up and running. So that has been good. The virtual taps have been something that has really been a game changer, because there's challenges in seeing that east-west or intra-VM traffic, depending on what you want to call it. And there's important stuff in there, right? I mean, I think going back to the concept of visibility, it's important to see everything, right? You can't just see some stuff, because there's always going to be, that blind spot, and you don't want to have that blind spot. So you have to see everything. So if you have intra-VM traffic that are important transactions that are happening, you need to know if they're happening and when they're happening. And it's not just about performance. It's about understanding what those transactions are. We have a large customer here where they have an MQ, middle tier, or an XML traffic, and every time one of those messages gets sent, it lets them understand if that insurance claim is being processed or if it's having to be further analyzed by an agent. And so they can watch that trend of those XML messages and see, is it good or does it need additional analysis? So if you don't see all of them, you can't understand what that total volume is and what that churn is. And there's business metrics and there's dollars associated with that. Everyone that goes into the bucket for further analysis costs them $23. Everyone that gets just processed only costs them $11. And so they need all that data. And so we can't just have some of it. And so when someone says, oh, well, it's just enough to look at that one tier, it's not. Or it's just enough to look at only the bad transactions. No, you got to see the good ones too, because then you get the full picture and know what's going on. So the point I'm getting to here, to kind of circle back, is, with the virtual taps and with physical taps and with the NTOs at the front end and that full visibility and that visibility fabric, we're able to see those intra-VM transactions. And they're important, and they still get fed in, and we still see them the same way, because oftentimes there isn't a way to create a span from virtual infrastructure. And so the virtual taps are able to get in there and get us that. And we don't have that, that visibility loss. So I'd say the virtual taps have been something really, really exciting for us to make sure that we can really tout that full visibility promise that we tell our customers. And now, as we mentioned before, as things move to the cloud, IXIA having a solution for cloud and being able to get traffic there as well is really keeping that promise that we can show every user, every transaction for every application, which is, if you go to our website, I think that's on the front page. It's, it's our mantra, and we have to stay true to that.
Thank you, Jason. I think Keith is smarter than all of us. I think Keith knows that he sells the blades. So let someone else shows the chafers, right? Nobody buys his product for his, for his own sake. They buy because they want to use it, right?
No, our products are good looking.
Oh, is that why you sell them in blonde and red hair? I'm sorry.
Exactly. Even the virtual ones are good looking. Come on.
All right, Tim. Why don't we close the show? Tim, what else do we have upcoming?
Got some surprises coming. I'm waiting to get some feedback. Unfortunately, I've been out quite a bit, so I haven't been able to do as much as I usually do. So, but I'd love to have Jason back and talk from the perspective of this is what you see. This is how you can be an effective manager of your applications, of your databases, of your network. I'd love to do that. And I want Keith back too, because again, it's kind of a partnership and want to make sure we keep that. Also got some things coming in from overseas, some pretty cool stuff from that. And I'll definitely update everybody real soon.
Yeah, and we've got one more podcast coming up in June that talks about for monitoring best practices, that talks about security. So inline and out of band. We'll do a deep dive on that one.
Oh, we look forward to that. Thanks again, Keith, for being such a great guest and
thank you guys,
and also bringing in such great guests, speakers. And thanks again, Jason. It's a real pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Nice talking.
Yeah, we'll look forward to seeing more of you. Maybe understanding more about your product.
Sure. Yeah, happy to.
Okay. Hi, Tim.
Keith,
so you take care, right?
Keith will give you my email.
Okay, great.
Okay. So with that, I'm gonna close the show. Thanks once again, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Peace.